Alright, boys and girls, Bunchman Bok Choi here. We're back in F124, taking a look at the current featured event in F124, and it is the Ali Behrman at the Saudi Arabian Grand Prix, trying to replicate his drive earlier in the season, starting P12 and trying to finish P7. And the name of the game here, right away, is ERS harvesting. You're gonna need it because for some reason the Ferrari has a lot of trouble getting up to 8th gear on the straights without deploying battery and without DRS. So right away, what you want to do is try to get within DRS of Alex Albon as soon as you can. Fortunately for us, we do manage to catch up to him before this detection zone here. And then once you do, start conserving battery. We're using a little bit of hot lap right now to make sure that we catch up to him and to make sure that we get close for the start finish straight. So we're still on medium here, but whenever you do manage to get within DRS and you're close enough, say like half a second, put that ERS deployment down to none to try and conserve as much as you can. Right now we still have about 20%, so I wait a little bit until we're closer to the final corner and then back up to hot lap or overtake and open up DRS and then make the pass. It was really tight here with Alex. I wasn't sure if we'd get close enough. Setting the fastest lap, 1:30.031. We managed to get wheel to wheel with him as we go into turn 1, and then we make it by him nice and clean. Now it's going to take me a lap to catch up to Magnussen, but like every time you see these videos, I'm not super quick. I'm still using Racing Line, so you guys can probably catch up to Magnussen much faster than I can. I think if we look at the time trial leaderboards, I'm like a second and a half off of world record pace, like the legit world record pace, not the hackers at the top of the list who are like a second or two faster than esports drivers. Like, that's believable. Magnussen does have a 10-second penalty, but it's not going to matter anyway. You need to get up to P7, so don't rely on these penalties or the time penalties to help you gain positions. Now, I don't think his tires are super fresh, as he's not exactly speeding through the corners here. We're about a second and a half. And I didn't want to drop my ERS deployment down to none because, like I said, the Ferrari just doesn't have amazing straight line speed. So just kept it in medium for this entire lap and tried to get as close to Magnussen as we could without using too much battery and then without going down to none, just because it is a little bit more difficult to catch up to Magnussen than it was to Albon. The good thing is the moment you pass these AI cars, as long as you're not passing them in the Sector 2 DRS zones, it shouldn't be too difficult to keep them behind. Obviously, if you're passing them on the final DRS zone as you go into the final corner, you're not going to have a good time because then they'll just repass you on the start finish straight DRS zones. So pick your overtake spots wisely, as it's going to be easy for them to get past you again because they have crazy straight line speed for some reason. Fortunately, we catch up to Magnussen on this corner here, so we can go down to none with our ERS deployment, save a little bit of battery. You're going to need it. For some reason, Jeddah this year is really difficult to save battery, or not super difficult, but not quite as easy as it has been in years past. For some reason, F122, F123, it just felt like I could use overtake constantly and didn't have to worry about harvesting battery. Always just had a bunch of battery to play with, but for some reason this year, rightfully so, there's a lot of straights. Now, like I said, I didn't want to pass him there because then he would just pass me again on this DRS straight. I figured let's just stick behind, get DRS, use DRS to save a little bit of battery, overtake him on the start finish straight, and then we can pull away through the rest of sectors 1 and 2 before we get to the DRS zones again. Having a bit of a moment there, but fortunately for us, not too big of a moment. We managed to gain control of the car again. About 40% battery as we come out of that final corner. And look at this, we're using all of it, and we're barely getting wheel to wheel with Magnussen. And again, having to take the first few corners nice and slow just to make sure we don't make contact, and we make it by him. And then Hulkenberg is only 1.4 seconds ahead. I think he's on older hards here, so it's not going to be too difficult for us to catch up to him. Now look at that, Norris is 5 seconds ahead. There's a lot of RNG in this event, like there always is. And this event was a lot more difficult than the 2 Verstappen events in the previous featured events. So again, go down to none for this corner here, and Norris has already dropped almost a second, so that tells me Norris and Hamilton are kind of fighting very hard. Norris and Hamilton being the 2 cars ahead. Sometimes I played this at 110 and Logan Sargent actually fell back and would get in their way. Obviously, they would get by him super quick, and then he'd get in our way, and then other times Logan Sargent managed to stick to Russell a few seconds ahead and didn't really come into play. So you're going to have to play around with that a little bit. You know, if you get bad RNG, just restart it and hope for better RNG in the next race. And this was a good race for us. Hamilton, Norris switching positions, slowing each other down, and we caught up to Hülkenberg, who doesn't put up quite as much of a fight. We have a little bit more battery than we did with Magnussen going into the final corner here, and it seems like he doesn't have quite as much straight line speed, as we're still at 20% here, whereas with Magnussen we had to use all of our battery. Having another moment into the first chicane there, but we get by nice and cleanly. And at this point, by the time we get by Hülkenberg, Hamilton's only 2.5 seconds ahead here. So you've got about 3 laps or so, counting this lap, to try and close up 1.2, 1.3 seconds to Hamilton if you get a race similar to ours here. So at this, from now on, I'm not going to be dropping down to none ERS deployment, just because we want to try and catch up to those 2 cars as quickly as possible. So we're going to be sticking to medium, and if you do, you're not going to be harvesting that much battery, just because, like I said, can't really harvest too much battery at Jeddah. There's just too many points on track where you're flat out, and when you're flat out, you're using battery, you're not harvesting battery. Not too many slow corners here or hard braking zones, so it's going to be really difficult to harvest battery, and you're going to have to be smart with your battery usage. Now, coming up to the final corner here, we did manage to get the gap down to 1.7 seconds to Hamilton. So they're not super quick through sectors 2 and 3, but as you can see here through the final corner, yeah, the gap stayed kind of consistent, and now they're DRSing off of each other, and you don't have anybody to get DRS off of, so now the gap's gone back up. So you have to treat Sector 1 and Sector 2 very carefully, try and gain as much time as you can, because you're going to be losing out on the straights. Now, coming into the S section here, we're at 1.2. I don't know if it's dirty air, aging tires, whatever, but we're gaining on them at this point. Trying to get within a second going into the left-hander up at the end of this straight here. Unfortunately, we do manage to do so. So now we can start conserving battery a little bit. We know we're within DRS, dropping that ERS deployment down to none for this corner here. Hamilton is saving battery through that corner as well. Back up to medium for the exit, try and get within DRS and stay within DRS here. Fortunately for us now, even Norris is less than a second in front of us, and so we can get DRS off of Hamilton. Keeping the ERS deployment up to medium. Only when I see Hamilton start blinking do I drop it back down to none. Like I said, this event is all about managing your battery, because you're going to need it to overtake both cars. So up to medium again, back down to none when I see that they're starting to fight. Norris is blinking at this point, Hamilton is blinking. I wasn't going to try and overtake either car. As you can see, we have a bit of a moment through there again. But Norris is still blinking on the exit. He's not going to get, or he's going to get DRS, but he's not going to have battery. So I decided to make the overtake there, even though I wanted to wait until the last lap to try and overtake both of them. But we got lucky there, and we managed to get one of the cars out of the way. And Hamilton didn't really get too far ahead. He did down the straight, but once we got into turn 1, he started slowing down again. And at this point, it's just all about driving as cleanly and as efficiently as possible. We still have about 30% battery. We can conserve a little bit more on this final lap here. There's obvious spots, or there's spots obviously where it's easier to conserve battery, like this left-hander here, back down to none to try and conserve battery. And I wanted to get maybe up to 50%, but I didn't think that was going to be too realistic. From this point on, there's not too many hard braking zones except for the final corner, so we just have to try and do our best. I wanted to drop down to none here again to try and save a little bit more battery, but look at Norris in the mirror. He's using overtake here, I think, and he's just so close to us that I was like, I can't drop down to none. We have to keep it at medium here, and our battery isn't as high as where I wanted it to be. So now just having to make choices at the last second. Hamilton's blinking the moment we get through that DRS zone, and I was like, all right, I have to make the move here, just defend through the final corner, and then hopefully we have a little bit of battery, enough battery to defend down the straight. We're not, you know, start finish straight is about halfway down, and fortunately for us, Norris doesn't get a great final corner, and we just barely managed to pull it out there. So like I said, much more difficult than the Verstappen featured events. Feels like the Verstappen featured events, even at 110, was way too easy. And this was a little bit more difficult. The Ferrari, for some reason, even though it has decent straight line speed in real life, just doesn't seem like it has very good straight line speed. So we managed to score 279,000 points, I believe. Only good enough for like 80th on the leaderboards. I'm not quite sure. Where are we? Yeah, 83rd at 110 difficulty. And look at that. We got guys at 85 difficulty ahead of us. Using assists as well. So I was like, what the hell is up with this? Is the game bugged? Is everybody cheating? So I went back and tried it again with 0 AI difficulty, and we still managed to score 242,000 points. So I don't really know how they're scoring these featured events, but I feel like the difficulty bonus should be a lot higher. If I score 242,000 points at 0 difficulty, I think I should score more than 279,000 at 110. But yeah, I'm not really quite sure how that works out. At 0 difficulty, it's a lot easier to get a good fastest lap. It's a lot easier to get a good total time score because you're not fighting anybody. I think they really need to rework the point systems here, but I don't know. What are you going to do about it? Anyway, that's it for us, guys. If you think I've earned it, feel free to leave a like, comment, or subscribe. Stay tuned for more. Remember to eat bok choy. I'll see you guys in the next one.